Hello, and welcome to the Millennial Nutritionist Podcast. I'm Illa Garcia, master's degree of nutrition science and registered dietitian, and I'm going to make weight loss realistic, sustainable, and uncomplicated for your busy lifestyle. On this podcast, me and my team of registered dietitians will decipher the latest nutrition research, dissect fad diets, and discuss social media trends for you so you can feel confident knowing what to eat to achieve your health goals. Research suggests that most weight loss programs aren't successful, but my experience has taught me that this is not because the participants aren't committed. It's because those diets are designed by non-nutrition professionals and center around severe restrictions. We are here to provide the facts about the science of weight loss so you can have the success you want and continue living your best life. Welcome back to the Millennial Nutritionist Podcast. My name is Illa, registered dietitian, founder of the Millennial Nutritionist, and host of the podcast. Today, we're going to talk about why we should still be focusing on health goals despite what our current weight goals are. I think a lot of people have forgotten about this with a lot of the stuff coming up over social media. A lot of people forget that we still have healthy things that are going on that should still be addressed with nutrition intervention. So I just want to give you a refresher on some of these diseases and how they can be impacted by poor nutrition and what you can do about it right now. I picked 4 diseases that I've had clients actually have. So hopefully it's kind of relevant to our age. Unfortunately, we're not all in our teens anymore. So we need to start thinking about these later life diseases. And we'll go over exactly what they are, what happens if we don't eat differently to fix it, and how to fix it. And then we also have another new weight loss medication. Then we're going to talk about how that might impact everything. But to help me explain all this, Hannah is joining us. So thank you so much for joining us, Hannah.
Hey, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yes. So we literally just recorded a podcast episode a couple days ago. So there's nothing else to catch up on. But do you have any fun weekend plans? You're going out of town, right?
Yeah, I'm actually going to Arizona for a work trip next week, and I've
Oh,
never been to
nice.
Arizona, so I'm really excited because there's supposed to be like really good hiking spots. So staying a couple
Yeah.
extra days to get in some hiking after my like work stuff.
Awesome. I've never been to Arizona. Like now living in Texas, I want to like try to explore. Like I've never been to New Mexico. I've actually never been to Colorado, like all these little areas out here. Did you go much when you lived in Texas or no?
No, but I feel like I was the only one who didn't. Like I
Oh,
regularly had friends that always like spent winter break like in Colorado, and I have also never been to Colorado.
dang. Okay, so it's not that uncommon. Well, cool. I am kind of like taking it chill. I'm throwing myself a big birthday party. My birthday's in December and I always just celebrate it in January because like everybody's always busy in December. And I like having like murder mystery parties and it's always super involved.
Ooh.
Yeah, so next weekend is the party and this weekend I'm kind of like getting all the materials together. So
Oh,
that's
fun. Well,
yeah.
happy late birthday.
I
I didn't
know.
realize it was your birthday.
Thank you. Yeah, happened when we were in Belize. So we end up always like taking a trip and then we just say it's my birthday then. But as far as some client updates, I have a recent Google review from a client that I wanted to read about who actually was one of my clients. Her review is that she said, working with Isla was a breath of the fresh air that I needed. I set out to improve my relationship with food and I surpassed what I had hoped to achieve. Her permission based, non judgmental approach is what we as women should be embracing when it comes to our relationships with food. And she was somebody that really started working with a therapist at the same time as she started working with me. And it was amazing for her because we were able to really, I was able to focus on the nutrition part, making sure she was full, making sure that her cravings weren't coming from her like being deficient in protein or produce or something like that. And then she was able to work on like her emotional eating with her therapist. And she ended up doing really, really, really well to the point where she didn't have to track anymore at the end of the program. And she felt so much better about herself. So that's always really exciting when we kind of get that. But also moving into our article today. There is another new weight loss medication. Let me pull up the article. So this is a article from NBC News, so a pretty good source. The
Mhm.
title is A New Weight Loss Drug Could Become the Best-Selling Drug of All Time. Who can afford it? There have been so many of these drugs recently. It's been hard to kind of keep track, but this new drug is called tirzepatide, and
Mhm.
I think it is the exact same thing as Mounjaro, which we have a blog post about it. But tirzepatide, I think, is going to be like the non-diabetes marketed one because if you have diabetes, you can get it covered with insurance. But the thing is, with this new medication or this different version of it, you will not be able to receive like coverage from health insurance. It's all from the same company. Novo Nordisk makes Celexa and Wegovy, and so they're now making this new one called tirzepatide. It's speculated to be the highest selling weight loss drug of all time. They think that it's probably going to be priced around like $1,500 a month with no insurance coverage, to like $13,000 annually, which is crazy. I didn't realize these drugs were like that expensive to be taking them. And now that I know people that take them, I think it's insane. But they've shown that it's helped people to lose 22.5% of body weight, which is crazy. The different part about this compared to the other medications is that it does reduce appetite, which other ones do, but this also is supposed to be playing a little bit into metabolism. So it has shown to help break down or help imitate this GIP hormone, which is what is damaged with people who have insulin resistance. So it really is supposed to help break down sugar with people who do have that problem. For people who don't, I don't think it's supposed to help that much. Well, what are your initial thoughts about like another drug kind of being on the market? You said that you did some like preliminary research just about like GLP-1 inhibitors in general. What do you think about this one?
I think I read an article, I feel like it was maybe like 6 months ago about, I don't know if it was like a different one or just like as a whole, but they all seem to be doing kind of the same thing. I think like the potential is like great, that's fine. But I my like initial thought on like when like seeing like another one had come out and it's like, supposed to receive FDA approval in 2023 too, is that I'm kind of frustrated. It seems just like another like quick fix. Obesity is classified as a disease per the American Medical Association. So I think it's fine if we want to use it to help treat obesity. But I do know a few people that are taking these types of medications and none of them are seeing dietitians. Like their physicians just wrote the prescription and sent them along their way. So I feel like it's almost like a band-aid and we're not getting to the root cause, which, can be a variety of things, but often it's like poor eating habits or like lack of exercise. So I think that if we want to use it like while pairing it with lifestyle changes, like I think that could be fine. But I think using it independently is just again like a band-aid for an issue.
Yeah, and my thing without using it without, like, the help of a dietitian is, like, when I've had clients who are on this, it does, like, drastically decrease their appetite. Like, we're almost
Mhm.
having to work on, like, making sure they eat enough. Like, it's hard for them to eat more than, like, 7 to 800 calories a day, which is insane. And so if, like, you're doing that without any guidance and you just think that, like, great, that's how you lose weight, like, I don't know, it sucks to only eat 800 calories a day. Like, how are you supposed to go on vacation or how are you supposed to, like, do anything if you were to eventually get off that medication? The only way you can maintain it is if you continue to only eat that much. So when I have clients, we are working on trying to like fight the drop of metabolism by making sure they're eating a lot of fats like nuts and avocado and stuff like that to try to get them to at least eat like maybe 1,400 calories. But if you're doing it without a help of a dietitian, I feel like it could just like leave you in a worse spot overall.
Yeah, that's exactly what I've heard from the people that I know that are taking it. They just simply say like, "Oh, I'm just not hungry."
Yeah.
And I think that could be dangerous. I don't think that yeah, I don't think that's safe.
I think for me, this also doesn't like help touch on, like, health? I mean, I didn't read a lot about, like, does it help with hypertension? Does it help with high cholesterol? But some of those are, like, independent of weight in general. Like, I have high cholesterol and I'm at a healthy body weight, so me just, like, taking medication to lose weight isn't gonna address my potential risk for a stroke later on in life. And so, I don't know if people understand that, like, just because, like, you lose weight doesn't necessarily mean you're, like, at a healthier state. Like, you've also gotta work on the nutrition things that we work on. Like, that's why we have people eat produce and why we have people exercise and we look at hydration and sleep because those are all also important for like addressing some of these health issues. So I don't know. They didn't really talk about it. At least I didn't see in the article, but that's like where my mind goes to is like you can lose all this weight and honestly be like less healthy in the first place. And then like, why would you want to pay all this money for it unless you are just like kind of trying to be lower body weight just because?
Totally agree. Health is definitely a lot further than just the number on the scale. A lot
Yeah.
of
And
other
that
things.
That kinda, like, ties into
Yes.
the topic that we kinda have today, because I do feel like a lot of people forget. I think some people think that just losing weight will make them healthier, but then we don't actually think about, like, what these conditions are that can lead to, like, an unhealthy life, and how we also kinda need to do the work besides just having, like, a low body fat percentage to see the results. Do you love our realistic approach on nutrition but want to dive a little bit deeper? Let me tell you about the Millennial Living Membership Program. This was designed to help you stay motivated and inspired no matter what health journey you're on. We develop monthly nutrition and fitness challenges with prizes you can win if you stick with it to help motivate you through every month. To inspire you, we upload weekly recipes with downloadable food lists, monthly food demos, and we can even have a registered dietitian answer your questions on nutrition and weight loss. Our members form a community with other like-minded people to help support each other on their health journey. If you are seeking a way to stay motivated throughout your health journey with our method in mind, try signing up for the Millennial Living Membership Program for the first 2 weeks free by signing up on our website at themillennialnutritionist.com. Why we shouldn't also be forgetting about health goals. So I think it's great if you reach a place of just being happy with your body, but if you have a health condition, you still need to address it. Or at least I think you should at least understand the implications of not addressing it. So these are some of the conditions that I think people forget are life-threatening if left untreated, but still can be addressed with our basic nutrition recommendations. So first, a little bit of background information. How can we define health? What are we saying that health is when we keep using that word in this podcast episode? What do you think?
I think that's a good question. I imagine it's probably different for different people. I think for me, I would define health as being in a good space, both mentally, physically, and emotionally. What about you?
Yeah, I think a lot of it goes down to what you want out of life. I think healthy means to me living a life that you're not miserable, yeah, mentally, and also it's great if you live to 100, but not if you don't have your mind and it hurts to walk. So for me, I think I would want people to be healthy in the terms of living maybe a fruitful, feel good type of life. And I think that is different from person to person what that means for you, but that's what kind of means to me and what I hope it means that I have the goal for other people too, to, be able to have more energy and be able to prevent diseases if that's their goal as well. Um, how do you think improving your health or quality of life can make life better?
I think there are a lot of different, ways. I think when we're talking about all different types of health, like mental, physical, emotional, maybe our efficiency at work might improve. Like maybe we wake up feeling more refreshed than we had previously. Maybe our energy levels, and this is what I see most frequently, is maybe energy levels are more sustained and we don't have an afternoon slump or bout of fatigue. Yeah, I think there's a lot of examples of that.
Yeah, I think, what I see too is, when people, sleep better. So, a lot of times, not saving, all of your calories to eat at the end of the day because you're so hungry and you're, wanting a release or, you have all these cravings, people tend to sleep better, and then I feel like when you sleep better, then everything in life seems a little bit better, you're able to have more energy throughout the day, like we were saying. I think also, I guess it's not really for our age, but, if we take care of ourselves now, hopefully it saves us time in the future to not have to be in and out of the hospital or also not spending so much money on medications. And for me, that's a big driver of wanting to be healthy. So I don't have to have my life consumed like that. I think working in the hospital really showed me that some people do just kind of have to live by their doctor going every couple weeks, but I'd much rather be an older person that can just enjoy my life. And so I feel like that's what I think of too for improving overall quality of life.
Yeah, and even a lot of, I know I take a lot of our mom clients, but a lot of our moms they just want to be healthy to be around for their kids,
Mhm.
see their kids graduate college, get married, be able to play on the floor with their kids, as they're toddlers, be able to chase them around the park and, be able to go to the beach and feel comfortable and energetic and, so those are important things and those are good reasons to be healthy.
And then kind of going into what does losing weight look like without caring about health, just so we can be really clear and what the outcome is. I think for me, what it looks like is, I mean, you're a smaller body size, but you might be more tired because you're not eating enough foods. You also might be at a higher risk of bone breaking if you are at a low body weight to the point where you have, not enough nutrients running around your body for your bones to be strong. I think it also can just be so consuming if you've only learned how to lose weight by being very, very restrictive and cutting out certain food groups. And so I see overall the outcome being not super positive and just be very exhausting if you lose weight without also caring about your health. Why don't you take the opposite? What do you feel like losing weight looks like while caring about your health?
Yeah, so I think when it like when thinking about like what my clients like learn and like what they tell me. One of the most common like words I hear my clients like say when we've like addressed all aspects of health like while achieving weight loss is the word free. And it sounds silly and it sounds cliche, but like that's what they say. A lot of them will say like, "Oh, I feel like a freedom just to be able to like flow through life without overthinking like things related to my food," or like freedom of not being afraid around like the holidays or like a birthday party or whatever. And I think they feel this way because they've addressed numerous areas of health. And I like what you mentioned about your client review in Google because that ties into what I was going to say with this, which is a lot of our clients that are working with us on physical health are simultaneously working with therapists on mental health. So many of our clients, and I would venture to say that those are some of our most successful clients. I really would. Do you see that too?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Because, like I said, it just, like, allows me to not have to play. I feel like both not that it's, like, within my scope to ever be a therapist, but it's like when they're not working with anybody, it's like, we're not gonna see anything if I can at least, like, just have you do some affirmations or something, and, like, that's just not my job. My job is to make sure that they are nourished and that we're taking care of those nutritional problems, and so I think when people are able to work with a different expert on, like, the emotional stuff, they're able to really address issues that also lead to overeating that I can't really help with, like the emotional eating. Like the fact that you might wanna overeat an ice cream because when you were younger, that's what your mom gave you when you were having a bad day. And, like, I can't really help with that, but that's gonna lead to weight gain if you don't address it. So, yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, and so much is tied together. And like you said, like we can't, it's not within our scope to handle that. And it's not in the therapist scope to like super address like food issues. So by having like two providers like helping you at the same time, like I feel like you can really make progress.
Yeah. All right. Well, tying into the 4 diseases that I've honestly seen in clients, so maybe more people out there have this, and what they are and kind of what can happen if they don't treat these diseases, and then how can nutrition help? Starting off with the first one is a recent client that I had acid reflux. Um, and if you don't know what acid reflux is, basically it's when your stomach acid flows back into your esophagus. So there's like a tube that runs from basically like your throat to your stomach, and that's your esophagus. And when the stomach acid goes back in there, it's not supposed to be in there. It causes a lot of irritation. More specifically, what kind of happens is there's like a flap or what they call a sphincter that opens and closes to separate the food from your throat to your mouth. And so from your throat to your stomach. So when that is either weakened or does not relax all the way, that's when the acid goes into your esophagus and you start to have these problems. What happens if we don't treat it? Like, let's say the doctor says that you have it, but you're like, well, it's like, it's okay. I can like deal with a little bit of irritation every now and then. Well, the first thing that kind of happens is you have like initial burning in your chest. So this can be in the form of like heartburn. You also can like have trouble swallowing. If you have a lot of acid reflux at night during the day, it can leave you with a cough all day long. It can also cause inflammation, actually change of your vocal cords, which is what was going on with one of my clients. Her vocal cords were actually like really raspy all of the time, which was just showing how long it had been going on. Eventually, the scary thing is it can actually lead to esophageal cancer, which I remember learning in school, and I was like, I really did not realize that, because stomach acid is not supposed to be in your esophagus. Your stomach acid is supposed to be in your stomach where it's built to live in that acidic environment, and so it really starts to erode and change the lining of your esophagus, and it can actually cause cancer. So we definitely need to treat it, but the good thing is it's pretty treatable, especially with nutrition. Obesity is actually directly linked to one of the root causes of acid reflux, and it's because of like, if you have obesity around if you have, like, a lot of fat tissue around your stomach area, it's squeezing it, and so it's kinda gonna squeeze the acid up. If you think about just, like, squeezing a bag that has liquid in it, like, there's only so much for it to go before it just comes up. So, losing weight is a big solution for dealing with acid reflux. Another thing is having large meals at night can cause you to have acid reflux. Like right before you go to bed can cause you to have acid reflux during the nighttime, which kind of causes that cough and all of that. So what you can kind of do about that, of course, is like making sure that you're just not having that large meal at night. And then another big nutritional trigger is making sure that you don't have foods that cause your own acid reflux. Everybody's very different. So some foods like fatty foods or fried foods or super acidic foods like tomato juice, coffee, stuff like that can cause some people to have acid reflux. But if you are, trying to help somebody with those solutions that I think we work with a lot, like the trying not to overeat late at night, trying to like balance your meals. What is a tip that you tell somebody that might be struggling with that?
Yeah, so I think, like, whether there's, like, weight to be lost or, like, not, the same thing would apply with not eating, like, super late at night. So, a lot of clients, I'm like, "Yeah, have a nighttime snack, totally fine. I like a nighttime snack," but I don't know if I would recommend that for that client. So I think just to, like, make sure they're not super hungry at the end of the day, like, maybe we make sure, like, we have, like, higher calorie meals, like, throughout the day, eat consistently throughout the day, that way they're not super hungry by the time, like, they go to bed. Because if they are eating, something at like 9 o'clock at night, heading to bed at 9:30, 10 o'clock, that might trigger that reflux.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this too is like these very large meals, like people who don't eat breakfast and lunch and then they go and have a huge dinner right before is more so where I think they've linked the acid reflux. So yeah, I think just making sure that you take that time for yourself to eat during the day and know it's super important to be able to potentially even prevent esophageal cancer. The next one that we have is high cholesterol. So tell us about high cholesterol, Hannah, and why should we care about it?
Yeah, so we do need some cholesterol, and our liver actually makes cholesterol, and our liver makes all the cholesterol that we need. With that said, we are also consuming things that can attribute to our cholesterol levels. So research shows that serum cholesterol levels, so that's, cholesterol that's in the blood, is not as impacted by dietary cholesterol that we're consuming, but is instead more so impacted by the amount of saturated fats that we're consuming. So things like tropical oils, like coconut oil, fatty meats, like red meat, like beef. I think lamb is also fatty meat, cheeses and stuff like that. Those are all going to be higher in saturated fat, which may end up impacting our cholesterol levels. And then there are two types. So there's LDL cholesterol and HDL cholesterol. LDL is what people often hear referred to as like the bad cholesterol, and HDL is referred to as like the good cholesterol, and it helps remove cholesterol from the blood. So we want higher levels of HDL and lower levels of LDL. And the reason for that is cholesterol can build up in our blood and put us at risk for heart disease. And heart disease, unfortunately, is the leading cause of death in the United States, and it's a preventable cause of death. So with lifestyle changes, we can like not eliminate, we can decrease our risk for having heart disease. And it is, there's countless research studies that are linking obesity to elevated cholesterol levels. The Obesity Action Coalition estimates that for every, I think it's 10 pounds of excess body fat, that an additional 10 milligrams of cholesterol is produced daily. So that's something that's a pretty big deal. There's also a research article that I read that suggested that at approximately 20 pounds, if you lose approximately 20 pounds, and that's assuming that you were at an unhealthy weight prior, 20 pounds of loss can potentially reduce LDL levels by 15%. So really, like, we want those levels like lower if they happen to be elevated, or just to be mindful of them so they don't ever become elevated. And the way to do that is to like increase exercise, decrease saturated fat, and to try to maintain like a healthy optimal weight for our body.
Yeah, which is what we recommend anyway. I don't want anybody to think that these are like, outside the realm of what we say, because I think so many
Mhm.
people kind of scrutinize and be like, oh, well, then I shouldn't eat this one food. And it's like, no, it really just goes back to everything, we say anyway, as far as like exercising, making sure you eat enough fiber, making sure your like stress levels are low. What is something like if somebody is, let's get specific about like if somebody's struggling with exercise and they know they should kind of be doing it to lose weight, reduce cholesterol, what is like a beginner tip you have for somebody starting out trying to exercise?
Typically, I like to start with just like taking walks. So if somebody's like really resistant to exercise, I'm probably not going to be like, well, you need to lift weights 5 days a week.
Yeah.
So we're probably just going to look at, like, we typically recommend about 10,000 steps for, moving our body each day. So I'd probably would like focus on that first and then try to like increase from there. But typically people don't think about like taking a walk as a form of exercise. And so when they realize like, oh, I can take a walk, like they're usually pretty open to taking walks.
Yeah, and I feel like people don't think that it, like, makes them feel, like, so much better. The biggest resistance I get is, like, when the weather's bad, but unfortunately, like, we don't have, like, 100 days of beautiful weather, maybe unless you live in California.
Yep.
So, I think finding ways to suit up, finding ways to, like, find, like, fun exercise clothes, I think even, like, setting out exercise clothes have been really helpful. And then let's, like, really quickly just touch on, like, saturated fat and what that actually means as far as, like, what that looks like and, like, reducing that. So, when you say, like, reducing saturated fat intake, what does that actually mean?
The first thing that I would probably reduce if this was like an area of concern would be like those high fat meats. So things like not ground beef. Well, yes, ground beef and like all
Mhm.
other beefs. So I think beef and lamb are the two meats that are highest in saturated fat.
Yeah.
So maybe that looks like buying like more ground turkey, more fish, more chicken. If we're going to go for beef, maybe get the beef that is like, because they have it in percentages at the store. So maybe get the one with, I think it's like, I know I can't remember the percentage, but it's the lower fat ground beef. And then you can also look for low fat cheeses. There's a lot of cheeses now made with skim milk. And I'm not sure why so many people love coconut oil, but coconut oil, I'm pretty sure it's like the highest, like out of all of the oils, the highest in saturated fat. So if you're like cooking all of your stuff in coconut oil, I would switch to something like extra virgin olive oil and just like get rid of the coconut oil, honestly.
Yes, like, I guess I agree about that too, like, of course, like, saturated fat is associated with, like, more animal products, but these tropical oils also have a lot of saturated fat, and coconut oil does too, and for some reason, they got around that marketing and just, like, recommended everybody to have it all the time, and it is, like, if you have high cholesterol, I think it's, like, one of the worst things to consume.
Yeah, I think it's like the craze is slowing, but
Yeah.
like people were like stirring it in their coffee every day, like cooking with it 3 times a day, and it's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, I think another one with saturated fat that I see a lot is, like, the eating out. So, like, I feel like when people tend to eat out a lot, we pick foods that are, like, less, like, healthy, so, like, doing a lot of the queso and doing a lot of, like, fried foods or just so many foods that are cooked with tons of butter that we don't even know about. So, I think also, like, trying to, like, be aware of what you're eating when you eat out and trying to eat more of those vegetables that we always talk about. Eating more salads, because, places love to cook things with lots of saturated fat when you go out to eat. My next one is sleep apnea. So I have gotten a lot of clients that actually have this, which is surprising to me. But it makes sense when I kind of like look into it. So if you don't know what sleep apnea is, a lot of times we associate with those people that have to like sleep with those big machines, like the CPAP machine, which yes. But what happens when you have sleep apnea is you actually stop breathing while you're sleeping. So it's kind of scary, but your body does wake you up. There's two different types of sleep apnea, but the one that has to do with nutrition and your body weight is called obstructive sleep apnea. And it really is just like actually like something is sitting on your throat. So you can't breathe, you can't flow in any air. What happens if you just like don't care about this was like if a doctor says like you have it and you are not super motivated to fix it, day to day can just like wake up very, very tired because your body does wake you up in the middle of the night. I don't think you're really going to die of it, like not being able to sleep. I mean, not being able to breathe at night. But your body is waking you up to breathe about 5 to 30 times per hour, which is crazy. So the biggest thing immediately is that you are just gonna be super tired throughout the day, which then impacts your ability to exercise, your ability to cook healthy meals for yourself, stuff like that. Also, long term, it can help lead to high blood pressure, diabetes, which we'll go over into a minute about why you should care about that. So it's really important to address sleep apnea. And also, who wants to sleep with one of those machines? Like it's not super cute to like have one of those CPAP machines forever. And that's probably also like expensive.
They're
Um,
really loud too.
yeah, yeah. How can nutrition help? So, like, what can you even do about this, if you do have it, or why should you care about it? So, obesity is actually like directly linked to this type of sleep apnea, the obstructive, because of all the fat. If you have extra fat tissue on your chest, on your neck, it can just actually just like sit on your throat and obstruct your airways. So the main solution is really just weight loss. That's all there is to it. And if you are able to, or why you should want to work on this is because if you no longer have sleep apnea, you'll feel more energized. So I actually was reading online that if you might not even know you have this, like if you snore, and it's actually more common in men. But if you snore very, very loudly, that's one symptom. Or if you're super tired throughout the day, they said it's worth asking your doctor if you could do a sleep study to see if you have sleep apnea. And also, like I said, to avoid that CPAP machine. But with the solution being mostly just having to lose weight, what is your beginner tip for somebody like starting out with weight loss? Let's just start there.
I would probably start just with the same way like we start everybody else in the program. I would just slowly start chipping away, making sure we're in the calorie bracket, making sure we're eating protein, making sure
Mhm.
we're getting the adequate, amount of produce. And then, maybe we start moving our body a little bit earlier.
I think it just goes back down the basics. So if you are trying to start losing weight, I think first making sure like picking kind of like one of those things if you're doing it on your own. We do have the free calorie tracking guide. So you can look at that. We also kind of show in there like how you can kind of put yourself in a calorie deficit without having to have the calculation. Then also kind of working on the fruit and vegetable aspect. But I think the biggest bang for your buck is probably going to be, yeah, like starting with exercise and making sure you're in a calorie deficit. Our last disease is diabetes. So tell us about diabetes, Hannah.
Yeah, so there are 2 types of diabetes, type 1, type 2. So for the sake of this, we're gonna talk about type 2, and that's the one that is most frequently going to be, like, lifestyle related. So what happens is our pancreas for type 1s, like, their pancreas is just not producing insulin. For type 2, the pancreas can, like, the insulin production can be slowed, or depending on, like, the severity or how long they've had it, like, your body can stop producing insulin altogether. And what insulin does is remove the, like, sugar from our blood. So after we eat, like, we consume glucose, and the insulin's job is to pull it from our blood and make it usable by our cells and our muscles and all of that. So when the insulin isn't able to do that, or when there is not insulin, there's going to be excess sugar in the blood. And there are a lot of reasons we don't want that, but for the sake of like weight loss, or like, being of an unhealthy weight, an excess amount of sugar is going to be stored as fat. So if our body can't use the sugar because we're consuming too much of it, or because it's not able to be pulled into our muscles and to our cells, we're going to store it as fat. So, that itself, like that's directly linked to obesity. And then outside of like weight itself, when we leave diabetes untreated, we can see, like we were just talking about diabetic retinopathy, and that's where like the blood vessels behind the eyes are damaged, so vision could be impacted. Kidney disease is a risk, and it sounds extreme, but I mean, people lose limbs. I mean, you only have to be a dietitian in a clinical setting for one day to come across somebody that has an amputation due to poorly controlled blood sugar levels. So with how nutrition can help with that is, if you're at a higher weight, maybe we want to bring that weight down a little bit and hopefully improve the function. If there was insulin resistance, hopefully we're able to improve the production of insulin, and you know figure all that out.
Yeah, no, that's another one that like body fat actually is like really directly related to improve blood sugar levels. In the hospital over and over again, I would tell people like just losing a little bit of weight could help. It could help you get off medications. I think a lot of people our age right now are starting to have like the pre-diabetes. That's what I see. Haven't had a client have diabetes. They probably won't even come to us, but like the pre-diabetes, I feel like is what a lot of the millennials are in the stage of now. My husband was like flabbergasted by like the other day he like read a fact that was something about like 50% of like Americans are like pre-diabetes. He's like, "Can you believe that?" I'm like, "Yeah, I can believe that." Like it's really it's super common. And when I worked in the hospital, like almost every single person had diabetes. And I'm sure you remember too from clinical, like that was just like baseline. Like, yeah, sure they have it, like,
Yeah.
moving on. And I think if you don't work on it, a lot of people don't realize like all the things that can happen. Like you're saying, you can lose limbs. You have very poor blood circulation, which is why people are at a higher risk for infections, for the flu, for COVID. That's when all that happened. And then ultimately, people can die from diabetes by your liver. I mean, your kidneys just shutting down, and there's not a lot you can kind of do at that point unless you just get a transplant. So there's a
Yeah,
lot that can happen, but I think it can have like a simple prevention.
just like you said, like people our age don't seem to be like as worried about it. Because a lot of those things like do happen like later. Like it is
Mhm.
people like, over 50 that I would most frequently see that are like dealing with amputations or like wounds that just like will not heal.
Mhm.
Um, but it's like scary. It's really scary. It's really scary. And it's often like once you get to that point, it's like it's too late. Like, if you have to do an amputation, there's not really any turning back. Like that's what you have to do to do. And
Yes.
we want to prevent that, of course.
Yes. And then again, how we can kind of work on it now for people our age, you're saying is just again like trying to maintain a healthy body weight. Is that right?
Yeah, trying to maintain a healthy body weight, eat your fruits and veggies, get adequate exercise, really like just like with almost everything else, it just goes back to the basics of like moving your body, eating a healthful diet, eating your fruits and veggies.
Yes, yeah, of course. So the kind of the same tip as before, but I think if guess were to give another tip on like kind of how to start with this, I think for me a lot of it like I'm a pro tracker. Even just like on a pencil and paper, like there's research to suggest that people who even just like write down what they eat are less likely to eat as much. And even when I start with clients in the beginning, like we don't really know what they eat before. And a lot of the people who immediately start losing weight, they're just saying that, like, because they're having to write it down and be held accountable for it, even just on their own, they're less likely to overeat. So that could be a really simple way. If you hate the calorie tracking, you don't even have to try that. You could try to just like keep a pencil and paper. So I tell a lot of my clients, like, even at the end of the day, if we don't know the calories that are in the food that you ate out, at least if you write it down, like, we kind of know that eating like 3 brownies is not going to be low calorie. So we don't have to know all the calories. We can just like have that to reflect on and say, like, okay, like, why did I feel like I needed that? Like, could there have been something else I had? Did I not eat enough earlier in the day? And then you can kind of start to notice patterns. So that might be my other beginner tip. Do you have one other beginner tip for somebody trying to lose weight who might be worried about diabetes?
Again, just getting outside and taking walks. But then I really liked what you said also. Like, you don't have to like log and weigh things and whatever to see like an impact. Like, you can simply like write down, like, whatever yogurt or, yeah, whatever brownie. And then at the end of the day, you can reflect back on that. And it really, like, there are connections that your brain makes. And it's like, oh, yeah, no, I didn't eat those 3 brownies. Or, oh, wow, I skipped breakfast. I totally forgot to eat breakfast. And like, you're making those realizations without necessarily like, penciling in like, how many ounces you ate or the calories or the protein quantity. Like, there's definitely like ways to do it without, logging into the phone.
Yeah, and I've even had clients like, I'm not even just like saying that, like I've had some clients who are successful with just like taking pictures or realizing like they tell me that they really don't eat that much or they don't really drink that much. And then when they have to like just write it down, they're like, whoa, I actually didn't realize I eat out like 5 times a week, or I didn't realize I actually do like have 4 glasses of wine every night on the weekend. And that makes so much more sense of like why I'm not losing weight. So I think there's a lot to just like knowing. But those are the 4 big ones that I see a lot with clients, and this year we'll kinda be going over some more diseases because I just think we need a refresher on why it's still important to take care of yourself, despite just, like, the weight. So thank you so much for joining me today, Hannah, and please make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We record these episodes, we do put them on Spotify and Apple, but we do, like, extra stuff over on YouTube. We put these on YouTube too if you enjoy looking at our faces while we talk. So thank you, Hannah.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you so much for listening to the Millennial Nutritionist Podcast. For daily weight loss tips and nutrition information, you can find us on Instagram at the.millennial.nutritionist and on TikTok at millennial.nutritionist. If you find this information helpful, please subscribe to the podcast and share it with a friend who needs encouragement on their health journey. See you in the next episode.